We are now being recorded, so what I will do is just start by thanking those of you who are on the screen. I'll thank you right from the start for coming this morning. We had a really great session about a week ago with both Leslie Williams as well as Cara Dale, Kelly King, and also Jeanette Hyde, and we got some really great feedback about just how useful that session was. So both Leslie and Cara have generously offered to do this on a more regular basis, and we thought it would be a lot more fun to invite people into the Zoom session so that you can ask questions and you can be part of the experience on a live basis. So big welcome to everyone. This won't be the last session, but we think it's a really important time for us to hear from people like Leslie and Cara. So what we might do to start with is just go to Leslie and just ask you, Leslie, if you could give us an update around what's happening in our local area during this time of crisis. And before you answer, Leslie, just remember that you are on mute. So unmute yourself, and we're really excited to hear your update. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Kayley, and thank you to the Business Women's Network for again hosting a session, and really pleased that some of the audience that we spoke to last week found it quite useful. And you know, I really encourage those, not that obviously those that are participating today have got an opportunity to ask questions, but if people are listening to this and weren't a part of the audience, the group, please feel free to contact me if I can help you with anything. I thought I'd just start really with an update of what our figures look like, and some people have already acknowledged that we are now indicated as a hotspot in Port Macquarie. Sadly, we did record our first COVID-19 related death over the weekend. He was a 91-year-old gentleman, and he was had been travelling on the Ruby Princess. So obviously, you know, I express my sincere condolences to his family in this really, really difficult time, particularly with regard to the restrictions around funerals, but many of you will already be aware of. So as of this morning, we have had 49 cases on the Mid-North Coast, so in the Mid-North Coast Local Health District, which is from, basically includes Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour and the surrounds. If you go onto the website, the health website, you can actually have a look at local government areas, but just bear in mind that that's generally 2 or 3 days behind what the statistics look like. So we have 29 cases in Port. There are 12 in Coffs Harbour, 4 in Kempsey, 3 in Nambucca and 1 in Bellingen. And as I mentioned, sadly, we've had 1 COVID-related death on the Mid-North Coast. I guess the best way to keep updated which, in terms of what's happening across the state of New South Wales is generally in the mornings at 8 o'clock, the Premier Gladys Berejiklian does an update, and that's probably the best information in terms of the most up-to-date information that you're going to get. Just before I leave for someone else to take over, I just wanted to really make mention, we talked in our last session about a lot of the support that was out there, particularly for businesses. But last week, many of you will know, we announced in New South Wales a $10,000 job business grant, which was called the Small Business, I probably won't be able to find the name of it now. Anyway, it's Small Business Grant Fund, I think it was called. So that is specifically for people, for small businesses. So it's for businesses that have 1 to 19 employees. They have a turnover which is more than 75,000. And you can apply for that funding. I'm happy to give more details, or can pass them on to people if they want to know the specifics of it. We tried to make it as easy as to apply for as possible. It's really just designed to help with cash flow. So understanding that many small businesses who may not employ very many people, but still obviously have to pay rent, electricity and so on, that there's a bit of a cash injection, hoping that that can get out to businesses in the next couple of weeks. But happy if people can keep me updated if they're having challenges actually getting the money out. I know Cara last time was talking about the bushfire funding, which is still available, and pleased to hear, in fact, some of your members have already got the $10,000 from that in their bank accounts. So, and just be aware that just because you've had a grant through a bushfire fund, doesn't mean you're excluded in any way from getting a grant through a COVID-19 fund. Certainly, there are many people, many businesses that will have access to more grants. You know, again, I encourage people who don't believe they fit into the criteria of either job keepers or job seekers, or the small business grant fund, please contact me. We are continuing to talk with Treasury because the whole aim is to make sure that we can continue to fill the gaps. You know, you as business people will understand that all businesses are set up very differently. They're all impacted differently, whether it's by bushfires or by COVID-19. What we need to do is understand where there are businesses that are not getting anything to make sure that then we can try and set up another program so we can support you. I'll leave it there, but, you know, happy to take some questions about that and during the session.
That's great. Thank you so much, Leslie. And what we'll do after today is we'll make sure that we've got some useful links like that on our website so that members can get the links for things like the $10,000 grant and the health websites, etc. because there's lots of information out there available. So thank you so much. What we might do is go to you, Cara, if that's okay, and just get you to give us a bit of an overview of what you've been doing to help local businesses.
Thank you so much, Kayley, and thank you everyone that's here today. So our business is about sharing knowledge, and we've been involved in helping a lot of businesses affected by the bushfire funding that's currently available. Now, there's two terminologies. There is a direct business that's affected, which is infrastructure has been burnt due to a bushfire, and there's indirect. So we've been significantly working with a lot of businesses in our local area that have been indirectly affected. So you might be a retail business that because of road closures, there was less foot traffic and your sales declined. You may be, you know, accommodation provider who's had cancellations. You could be a restaurant. So what we've been doing is working with local businesses. Now we've also been contacted by businesses that just fall out of the realm of the guidelines. And we've actually, as Leslie said, we've actually approached the departments with a case for those businesses. So the government, both state and federally, are definitely trying to help us all. We are fortunate in this area that we can get bushfire funding at the moment, and it is available. And that's both grants and concessional loans. So as we adjust to COVID-19 and then take on what supports are available, we do actually have two cards, which is the bushfire funding, and then we also have the COVID-19, and that funding will start rolling out in May, but there's a number of processes and preparation that we need to do in April to actually harness those opportunities and support our businesses and ensure that we can do a recovery later this year. But we want to make sure that we've got your cash flow supported. And there are, as I said, we're here today to give you a lot of knowledge about where there's opportunity and how both banks and government are supporting businesses during this really hard time.
Great. Thank you so much, Cara, and thanks for both you and Leslie for everything you're doing for our local community. I'm going to start with a question that I've got via email, and then for the rest of you, if you want to start putting your questions in the chat box, just as a reminder, that chat icon, it should be along the bottom of your laptop, and you can put your questions in there. But I'm just going to start with a question that was emailed through. I'm not really sure who the question's for, but it might be either Leslie or Cara. Cara, it might be one you can answer, but the question is there support for new founded business who are just a year old, open to the public, as their numbers have been slowing, and it's hard to gauge because it's a new business? I'm guessing that means they don't have any historicals to reflect on. Is that something you can answer?
I can answer from a practical perspective because so basically Service New South Wales and also the federal government understands that there are new businesses that may have only been in operation sort of that 3 to 9 to 12 month period and don't have comparables. However, whenever we go and set up a business, we would have done a business plan and we would have done a future cash flow. So what we would need to do in those instances is that there is support for those businesses, but there's a different process we have to apply. So what we need to do is do a special consideration, whether that's the state or the federal government. We need to put together your business plan, how you are going, which talks about, why you've entered into the business, how you think you're going to generate sales. We then compare your business plan and your cash flow at the start of when you open to what actually transpired during the period of operation. And then we put a case together to the departments specific to your needs. Now, what that can mean is that you may only get a proportion of a grant rather than a full allocation, but there is an avenue available for businesses that are in that circumstances.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Did you want to add anything to that response, Leslie?
Just really I think that really highlights about the nimbleness and the flexibility of the grants that are out there. Yes, the Small Business Support Fund, which was announced, the $10,000, did have a criteria about having operated for 12 months. And obviously that's about, doing those comparisons, because you need to demonstrate that your business has gone down 30% since, if you compare it to the same month last year. But I think it again highlights that, there is a preparedness to be nimble and flexible. And if you don't feel like you're meeting those criteria, as Cara said, there is a way around it about presenting a case so that you can access some of those funds. So, I think people just need to be conscious. Obviously, there has to be guidelines around all of these funding because at the end of the day, it's taxpayers' dollars. But we are very empathetic to the needs of every small business, no matter whether they started 6 months ago or 10 years ago.
Okay, great. Thank you. And just a comment there from Carly as well, saying that some positive reinforcement of that. Her restaurant only opened in October 2019 and was successful in getting a bushfire grant of $10,000. So that's great. And thank you for sharing that, Carly. That's great to hear. We do have one question, Leslie, and that is, will the state government be looking at assisting larger businesses with more than 20 employees, or will these businesses be relying on the federal government subsidies?
Well, there are some federal government subsidies, but we already have done a number of things. First of all, obviously, the payroll tax is one, the deferral of the payroll tax. Now, that was initially only for a certain group of people, but we've expanded that. We've also waived a lot of fees and charges for small businesses. So not all of what the state government done is cash handout. Some of it is about making sure that we can defer fees or other charges that you may have as a small business in New South Wales.
Great, thank you. That's great. Thank you very much. Any other questions, either in the chat box or just by maybe either giving me a thumbs up or waving your hands, and I can go to you for a question? Because I know it can be confusing at the moment regarding the federal government and the state government and what's been happening. There's just so much language and questions and unclear areas at the moment, particularly regarding the JobKeeper program, which we're all waiting to hear more about, and so on. So I know that a lot of you possibly do have questions, and please do feel free to ask, because that's the whole benefit of having a community and a network like this, is that we can all kind of understand that if one person's got a question, chances are the rest of us are wondering about the same thing. So what I might do then is just go to Cara, because I know Cara has some really good information about the grants, and to make sure that we're not excluding ourselves from the grant. So Cara, can you just give a bit more information about that for us?
Sure. So the first bit of advice, exactly what Leslie said, is do not self-exclude if you don't fall within the guidelines, because there is a willingness to work through on individual cases. Right. The other thing is that there needs to be, whether you're a sole trader, there are also opportunities in relation to the bushfire funding and also what we can do. So if we talk about all industries are eligible, which is a very unique opportunity at the moment, and then we have to look at the specifics. So there are supports, and then we're getting support out of the state government as well as the federal government. So there's a number of opportunities available. And if we look at bushfires, the priority here at the moment is if you are indirectly affected, and then how you then go about securing that funding. So the first step is to look at, like I've done a recovery, like a 10-point recovery plan of what we need to do. But if we talk about some general top level sort of opportunities, there's primarily one business bushfire grant and two very good concessional loans. And those concessional loans are offered by the state government. They're at a capped rate of 0.82%. They're either for 5 or 10 years, and there's 24 months interest free, and they're designed to help you get through the next 3 to 6 months, and then look at a 24-month recovery plan. So they're quite good opportunities.
Okay, great.
Yep.
I know there's a question here, and I know, Leslie, it's a federal question, but whether you can maybe give a little bit of an insight about whether we can expect the JobKeeper program to be legislated this week. I know my understanding is that Parliament will meet on Wednesday. Do you have any insights at all on that?
Yeah, that is going to the federal parliament, and my understanding as well is that they'll meet on Wednesday. The indication is that Labor want to support it. And so I think the whole plan is that they get it over and done with on Wednesday and can get the money out there as soon as possible. I did note that there was a question about sole traders, which is one that has come up quite a bit. And so I guess it'll be interesting to see what the final look of the JobKeeper program is. Bearing in mind there's also the Job Seeker program, which is a federal government fund, which may be able to, if you don't, it's difficult because sole traders obviously set themselves up very differently. It may be that you pay yourself a wage, and if that's the case, well then potentially you could go through the JobKeepers program to get a grant, but it also means that potentially you could go through the small business support fund that we set up, that $10,000 as well. So again, I think an important message: don't exclude yourself. There are lots of different avenues. As I know some of the people on the screen have already done, the JobKeepers, even though it hasn't been legislated yet, you should go on and register. Yep. And I think as of it was about 24 hours after it was announced, there were over 100,000 businesses across Australia that had already registered. So it's really important that you go through that first step while we're waiting for the legislation to go through the Parliament. But again, I noticed there was a question about sole traders. If there's something really specific about your business that you're finding it challenging to fit into any of the criteria, please don't hesitate to either flick me an email, and again, I'll send that through to Treasury to say, here's a case, a sole trader in a regional area, and, is there any way that we can support them? Just also be mindful that both the federal and the state government treasuries are looking at packages. And I know our Treasurer in New South Wales is looking at a package to support commercial and retail tenants. And I know that may not apply to you, Sue, depending on what your premises look like. No. So again, there are always going to be these uniques, but we need to hear about them, and we need to make sure that Treasury understand that there are still small businesses that are potentially falling through the gaps.
Yeah, that's great, Leslie. Thank you. And there's just so many questions about retail businesses because they haven't been directed to shut down, but with their downturn and with their individual concerns and so on, it seems to be quite a grey area in a lot of cases. But
generally, just on that point about being forced to shut down, generally you are not going to be excluded because whether you've been told to shut down by the government or you haven't been told. Generally, it doesn't matter. Cara might be able to clarify if you know further, but they've been very clear about that message. It's irrelevant whether we've told you, like say a beautician, to shut down, or we've told you we've just left that open. Should not make any difference about whether or not you can apply through these funding grants.
Yeah, which is great because I know with the stand downs before and the accessing Job Seeker, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, I'm going to stand down my staff," and you're like, well, that stand down provision is not really able to be enforced, although it's never been tested, if you haven't been directed. So it's great news that this is actually opening it up, so it doesn't have to be, you know, the people saying the government need to stand us down. It's the government need to shut us down. It's taken that out, which is really great.
And look, I don't know if Kelly wants to comment about that. You've obviously had that experience yourself, Kelly, about the process of not actually standing people down, but I guess more putting them aside so that they can come back, because obviously small businesses, whether it's restaurants or beauticians or whatever, you know, you've already invested in those employees. You don't want them to go away forever, but obviously, you know, you don't actually have any hours of work for them.
Yeah, it's it's temporary, which is great because you're keeping them employed. But Kelly, I'll just go to you and see if you do want to add anything to Leslie's comments there.
Yes, of course, we had over 100 employees, varying from full-time to permanent part-time to casuals, that obviously were impacted by the restricted trade on cafes and restaurants, and limiting the number of people that we can actually continue to employ at this point in time. But yes, we've I don't know whether it falls under the stand down or what the process is, because obviously we were trying to keep up to date with the legislation and the guidelines as they came to hand. But most certainly we have indicated to all of our permanent employees that we want to retain them, that it is our goal to have as many of our businesses up and running as quickly as we possibly can within the framework and the guidelines that are set by the legislation and the social distancing requirements that are in place. So, but it is a process, and obviously businesses can't access JobKeeper funding until May. So there needs to also be that cash flow support to get that happening. But we've most definitely tried to encourage our employees to enjoy some of this time that they might have, but it's not always easy because, you know, they also got to provide for their families and that as well. But most certainly that, you know, we would want to have them back and working as quickly as we possibly can.
Great. Thanks, Kelly, and thanks for being really open about that. We appreciate it. Danielle, I'll just go to you and just see whether you have got enough now information from Cara about the bushfire funding, because I know after you asked that question, we did go back to Cara, but I'm just seeing where Danielle is.
Yeah, here.
There you are. You're under my chat
yes,
box.
I do. I was just going to make sure that people understand to not self-exclude. The government's not in a position that they want to look at declining application. They want to see all the applications. Worst case scenario is they're going to come back to you and ask more information. They're going to defer information as well. So what we're saying to everybody, they did change the guidelines after they came out as well. And what a lot of people did in the first instance was to look at the guidelines and think they don't comply. And things have now changed since that funding has come out. So please have another look at it. If you have any issues, like speak to Leslie, speak to us. We're so happy to help anyone at the moment. This area is eligible for this funding. So everybody should be looking at that opportunity now while that funding is available.
Okay, thanks, Danielle. Okay, so question for you, Leslie. Could you just give us a bit more information about the online local directory that you've created for businesses to sign up to?
Sure, so this is an idea that a number of my colleagues decided that we would put into place. So basically, as you know, a lot of businesses have changed, particularly restaurants and cafes, have changed the way that they do business because obviously they can't have patrons sitting down to enjoy their beautiful food. So home deliveries have become really the norm at this point in time. So what we've done is we've set up a local directory, not just for restaurants, but for pretty well any business either that is still operating or is changed the way that they're operating. So they might now only be doing home deliveries. And so we're going to continue to update that on our website, which is just lesliewilliams.com.au. And we'll change it like weekly so that we obviously know there are lots of businesses out there that are now doing things a little bit differently, but are still operating. We want to get the message out to people that, you know, there are lots of local businesses still doing business, and what we need to do as a community is to support them, because that's how we're all going to be able to play a role in making sure they get through to the other side of the COVID-19 crisis.
Okay, great. That's a great idea, and it's probably something that we can all share through our own kind of networks and communities and groups of friends and so on, because I think, you know, everyone on this call definitely agrees that we want to be supporting local businesses that are still open, particularly those who have been really creative and resilient in how they've managed to continue running their business and so on. So that's great. We've got a question here as well, asking when will the package to support tenants be announced?
I wish I had a crystal ball, but you know, they are working really hard on it, as I said, both at a state and a federal level, looking at a package for tenants. Obviously, the message initially, and while we're doing in that process of putting a package together, is that people should be having conversations with their landlords. Tenants and landlords should be talking to each other. You know, I've spoken to a number of businesses, and I know this is not across the board, but, you know, I was speaking to a hairdresser the other day in Port. She said that her landlord just dropped 50% straight away to all the businesses in their building. So, you know, I think there are a lot of landlords that are really doing what they can, trying to help even before the package comes. But we're hoping that, you know, we'll be able to see that announced in the next week. But you know, I'm not privy to when that might actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. And it is amazing when you hear, like I know just through a couple of businesses that I support, their landlord, without even being asked, just instantly said, just so you know, you are not paying rent from today onwards.
Yeah,
and what's also been amazing is how some of those small businesses have passed that on to their customers and said, because our landlord has been so generous, we're now going to offer this or these services to you for nothing, because someone's been generous to us, so we're now paying it forward, and that's had a great impact across the community. So that's great. Cara, a question regarding amendments to the, I'm assuming, the modern awards that might have been made. Is that something you can shed a bit of light on?
Yeah, so this is just how everything is evolving on a daily basis. So last, there's been amendments made to the awards in relation to the hours, and it's across quite a lot of the awards that cover hospitality and retail, and it's also across quite a number of awards. So what's basically happened is the government, the federal government, has realised that we need some adjustments to the awards. Most of these amendments or variations are only applicable at this stage to the 30th of June. But it helps when you're negotiating with, if you're choosing to adjust your business and stay open, or working from home, or flexibility arrangements. The awards have been amended to allow businesses to remain open, but it might be slightly adjusted on how they do business. But it supports both the employer and the employee. And we need to remember a lot of employees have now children at home. And so they're trying to also help their children with their education as well as undertake work. So it enables, the normal hours has increased. So you can, on most awards, start at like 6 a.m. and it's changed. And I think some awards can go up to 11 p.m. So it's giving flexibility to undertake the work, for employers to balance that with the family needs of their employees. And it's also a strategy to help retain. So what the government has said is that they'll re-look at that in sort of late May, June, and whether they'll extend it further. But initially those amendments have been made. So it's important to educate your employees too about the amendments or the variations that have been made to the award.
Yeah. And
making sure you're aware, because that can help as part of your recovery strategy of how you, keep your employees, have them doing practical work that's going to generate revenue for your business, but at the same time being flexible as well.
That's great. And that I'm hearing just great stories about how a lot of people are just using this as a big opportunity to just enhance the communication with their team and to be super flexible, because absolutely, as you said, Cara, it's all about looking past this and making sure that we have really engaged, productive teams when we come out the other side, because they still do work for us all. and you know, they need that flexibility more than ever so that they can balance all the challenges in their lives. So that's great information. Someone did ask where that was published. I'm not sure if you can.
Yeah, I can easily. It is. So the Attorney General got the information out and did a media announcement last week. I can send a link to you and then you can put up on your website. But yeah, it is published, and they are trying to cover, I think there's 128 awards. They are trying, they've prioritised like the Retail Award and Hospitality Award, the Clerks Award, but there's a number of things that, yeah, so it is definitely public, and there's a media announcement last week. So I can send that.
Great.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that will have all the information on the additional leave provisions as well. And
yeah,
okay.
That's right. And that's just a key demonstrator of how whether it's a jurisdiction of the state or federal government, they're trying to be nimble and move really quickly to help us.
I know.
Because their goal is that retention of staff. So when we do reopen and go back to a new norm after COVID-19, we've got our staff. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I love that, the new norm. No, we're not going back to what we used to be. It's going to all be very normal. I'm just mindful that that's kind of wraps up our questions, and that's pretty good timing anyway, because we're mindful that some people are watching this as a recording, and we think that about 40 minutes is usually long enough for people to watch a recording of a Zoom session. So before we go, I will just check in. If anyone does have any final questions, feel free to either give me a wave and I'll go to you verbally, or put it in the chat. And what I might do is just ask if there's any final words from you, Leslie, and then I'll go to you, Cara.
Yep. Did you want to take Sue's question first? I know she's got a wave up.
Yeah.
The question regarding being excluded, is that right? Or I might have missed one, so apologies if I did. I'll just scroll back up.
No,
Sue, do you want to just ask that verbally, because I'm losing my mind on the chat?
Sorry.
You're right.
I just want to say thank you for this little thing, especially you, Leslie, and everyone else, because I am a bit lost being a sole trader. I have paid enough tax over the years because, like you, Leslie, I've been a registered nurse for 25 years and a teacher for 16. Might be going back teaching after this. But anyway, I just want to say thank you, and I'll probably have to send you an email. Mine's very, very tricky.
Yeah, please.
I don't know. I just think I need the support, not always money-wise, just avenues.
Yeah, it can be
so
very
I just
confusing.
want to really say thank you, ladies, because it's a little bit funny all this, isn't it? So thank you. That's all I want to say. Thanks, girls.
No, that's okay. Thank you. And it's great to see everyone stick together. And thank you for being so transparent to attend a meeting like this and ask your questions in a group forum.
It's scary, but we need to stick together and think about everyone's health more than everything else. But so thank you, ladies.
Yeah, thank you. And it's great that it has been a health focus right from the start, especially from you, Leslie, because we have to keep remembering that our businesses are suffering and we're all suffering, but it is a health crisis, and that's the hardest part about it. So Leslie, I will just go to you for any final comments, if that's okay.
Well, first of all, can I just respond to Sue? I think it's I will look forward to receiving your email, but the point about if you have ways that the government could help you, again, that's really important that people pass them on. People who have, politicians don't always have the answers, but we're always very welcome to hear suggestions on, very practical ways that we might be able to support sole traders. And I noticed Sue said it might not actually be money. So is there some other way that we could help you? And maybe that's something that they might be able to look at. Look, in closing, one of the questions as we're coming up to the Easter holidays, which of course it'll be a stay-home holiday for all of us, has been, people have asked about people coming to Port Macquarie, coming up to the coast from Sydney for holidays. Just so you are aware, and we have a copy of the public health order on our website, it is actually against the law to come to the mid-north coast or anywhere on a holiday. Now, we've been very strong about our message. Do not come to regional New South Wales, which again, as you said, Sue, it's a pretty bizarre message. That's normally not what we're saying. We're saying come and support our local businesses, but we are making it very clear that we do not want people travelling over the holidays. And in fact, the public health order makes it against the law, and there are penalties that will apply. The other question has been, and I've received a number of messages through Facebook about people at the beach. Now, I guess what I'm saying to you is urge everybody you know to do the right thing. If you're going to go for a walk along the beach to exercise, that's fine. You do need to social distance. You're only allowed to be in groups of 2 unless it's a family group. But if we do not comply, we will see what's happening in Sydney, and that is beaches will be closed, and that will be to all of our detriment, because we all love going to the beach. I take my dogs for a walk at the beach every day, and we don't want to get to the point where we have to close beaches. But it will all depend on people complying. So I guess my message is urge everybody to do the right thing, and then we'll still be able to enjoy that, some of those small luxuries that we still have.
Oh, that's great. And you couldn't agree more, Leslie, so thank you for that. Any final words from you, Cara?
Yeah, so thank you again. I've got a few. So the first one is simply don't self-exclude. If you are you have a unique sort of business or you're not fitting into the boxes, please have a conversation. You know, first point is Leslie, because she can escalate that up. And the second point is we have been doing that with the departments as well. So we can give you some guidance about how we go about that process, because it is very different and it's actually hard. It's not written down. It's not a clear in the guidelines. There's a process, but we can help you. The next thing is look at the bushfire and the impact it's had on you, and start to regroup on your business in relation to doing like a recovery plan. Understand what the banks are also offering you as financial support in relation to the cash flows. Look at both business and make sure that during the month of April, you register for all the COVID-19 things that will start to come into effect in May, and understand deadlines and compliance. So for the $100,000 wage subsidy, firstly, you have to be paying wages. Secondly, you need to have got all your BAS, PAYG lodged with the ATO before the 28th of April. And thirdly, you need to be paying all your super contributions up to date. So the last thing you want to do during this really difficult period, and we're all going through an emotional upheaval as well as we try to support each other, is to miss something because of a deadline. And the one thing I can say is that, you know, if anyone has questions, they're more than welcome at any time, because our business is about sharing that knowledge, to give us a call and we can point you in the direction of where you can get that information, and it will save significant time as well. So, you know, a 2-minute or a 5-minute phone conversation can save you so much time and anguish in this really difficult time, because Leslie can do the same. She can point you in the direction of the website that's applicable to your circumstances, and vice versa. So it's really about sharing the knowledge and making sure we as a community come out of this, and we also bring our businesses out of this. They might look a little bit different, but if we can take the opportunity that there's presented and harness the support of the state and federal government that they're offering us in businesses, we will come out of this. So.
Great. Thanks, Cara. And we did just have a quick question regarding how to contact you. So I know you're not a big self-promoter, but if you could just let everyone know about a little bit about your business details, because we did have a question from Sue.
Yeah, so our business, C2 Hills Consultancy, is based in Lake Cara, and our business is about sharing knowledge. So we make the big wheel of government work effectively with the little wheel of business. And the first step to do that is to share knowledge. So you can give us a call. Our main office number is 65854344, or you can send an email to us at info@c2hillsconsultancy.com.au. But our priority and our passion, and we've been operating for a bit over 7 years, is about knowledge sharing. So we're more than willing just to help point you in the direction of where you can get some information, and just help to demystify what is available to your business and what conversations you need to have. And the priority is really to, you know, review your business, engage with your employees and suppliers, engage with, you know, your banks and your accountants, and then work to your future recovery plan.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm just mindful that we might need to wrap up, but I just thank you for that summary, Cara, because you saved me a little bit of time. But just in summary, just remember a couple of those key messages that have come out this morning, particularly around making sure that you do go onto the ATO website and register for the JobKeeper program, that we that we check out Leslie's website, not only for information regarding updates on our local area and the health website, but also in making sure that we're accessing and sharing, hopefully, that online directory so we can support local businesses. And then I guess Leslie's final message around being mindful of the public health order, and that, you know, we should not be coming to Port Macquarie for holidays, which again just feels so weird that we're saying that, but it's where we're at. And just to do the right thing. I mean, I think it would be just one more, I guess, thing to bear if we were told that our beaches needed to be closed purely because people weren't doing the right thing. So even if it means having to have that difficult conversation with friends or people that you know about making sure that we apply the distancing rules and that we protect our beaches from being closed down, that would be really great. So big thank you to everyone for coming this morning. I know that some people will be watching this on a recording because they're either at work or they're trying to homeschool their children or what have you. So not just the people who are on the screen this morning, but those who are watching this as a recording, we send you all of our love and our best wishes. And I think we heard loud and clear from Leslie and Cara that you can reach out to them at any time. And of course, just continue connecting with us as a network through our Poppy Connect. All of our links are there, and some really great communication and support is available through that Facebook page. So we will get you some more information. We are meeting as a committee this evening, so we'll be able to let you know what our plan is for ongoing catch-ups and meetings, and Holly had a coffee catch-up last week, and we continue these informative sessions. So a big thank you, and everyone just take care of yourselves and each other. I am going to stop the recording now, and if anyone wants to stay on and ask anything else, you can. I will ask Kelly and Leslie and Cara to just stay to the end so I can thank you once again. But thanks again for listening and for attending this morning.
Thanks, Kayley.
Thank you.